So I have a quote here that says software testing is not just about finding bugs, because that's one of the misconceptions. It's like, I'm just looking for bugs. No. You're not bug hunting. You are ensuring quality at every stage. You are ensuring quality. So the quality is equals to functionality. Is it functioning properly? Is it reliable? Is it usable? Is it performing well? Right? Those are the things that you consider when you're looking at quality. Our time is fast spent. I need to move faster now. But I needed to just establish this this basic. Does anybody have any question at this point? Okay, I'll move on. Right, like I said earlier, cost reduction, because fixing a bug in during development is cheaper than fixing it when it's already out there. Right, of course, user satisfaction, because happy customers, I mean, they say happy wife, happy life, right? But now in business or in software is happy customers, better reviews, good business, right? Business reputation, you are reputable. They always say that this business, this company, always bring out good products. Testing help, and for security also, there's a part of software testing that is for security specialists. For security people, they do software testing, but they focus on security. That's in cyber security, right? Also, they do compliance as well. There's also compliance, that your software complies to certain standards, depending on the industry that you're working at. For example, in health, there's EPA, there's fire, there's, in banking, we have the PCI DSS compliance and all of those things. So you test for those compliance. Of course, confidence, right? Gives you confidence, right? So next, there are different types of testing, right? And we can categorize them by automation, for example. That's the approach that we use to perform the test. Now we have what we call manual testing. Now our first course that we are running right now is focused on manual testing, which means you are not going to be writing code at all, right? It's called manual testing. You are mostly going to be relying on your analytical skill and curiosity to test a product, right? So this is test by humans, and you execute test cases manually. We'll talk about what test cases mean later, right? Automated testing means that I have tested this thing manually and it's working. I have a defined path. Right? Then you now write a script or a code that tests that software based on that path. That's what automation testing does. Now, by the knowledge of the code base, for example, someone just brings you into the software and say, oh yeah, come and test this software. You don't know what it's about, right? So if you are aware of the internal structure of the software, we call it, if you are not aware of the internal structure of the software, we call it black box. So it simply means you are entering in a black box and you're trying to test it. You have no idea of what the internal structure of that software is at all. So it's called black box testing. We also have white box testing, means that you know the code and the structure of that code and you are testing it. You understand the full knowledge of that code and you're testing it. Usually we find software developers in white box usually, and software testers usually in black box, because most times software testers may not really directly involved in the coding. They just take the application and test it. Then we have gray box, which sometimes, for example, I would say that I'm a gray box tester because most times I understand what's the structure of the code and I understand how to test it. So sometimes I will give insight into writing the code so that while I'm testing it, I can test it properly. Also, there is what we call the approach. Static testing means that you are just examining the code. You are not executing the code. You are just checking the code for quality, for bugs, anything. You are not running the code, right? But if you are executing the test, the software, that means you are doing dynamic testing. We'll move on to the next page. I'll be faster now. So there is what we call hierarchy, right? Or the testing pyramid is an hierarchy or testing pyramid. Okay, can all testing be done on a single software? Yeah, I have a question here. Let me quickly tell you that. Can all testing be done on a single software, or is it okay to use any type of testing? Well, it depends on the team that you're working with. Or the company you're working with. That will determine the type of testing that you have to do. Right. So in that case, yeah. So the testing pyramid, we have unit testing. Unit testing is usually at granular level of the code, which is usually done by developers. There's something called TDD, test-driven development, right? So it means that as developers are writing their code, every small piece of code that they write, every functional piece of code that they write, they're supposed to write a test for it. So they're supposed to write it. Most developers are lazy because the number of unit tests that they have to write is always going to be very large. So they they usually avoid it. And it makes testing for normal testers more difficult, right? So you're testing individual components in isolation, done at code level, is fast, but it's plenty. There's a lot of code that you have to run. Then we have what we call integration testing. Means that now that you have written a lot of unit tests, you now want to run all those unit tests together, right? That's what you now call integration test, because now this component is going to be working with this component. So how do they work together, right? That's integration testing. Then we now have what we call end-to-end testing. End-to-end testing means that how the entire application function together. Say a particular user journey, as I sign up and I create an account and I do this and I do that, testing that from start to finish is what we call end-to-end, right? So it takes a lot of time and it's usually very comprehensive. So let me go to the next phase. So there's also what we call testing by purpose, right? So I think I mentioned this earlier, there's functional testing, which is testing that the app works as described in the functions, right? Performance testing is usually like, how does this app perform in terms of speed, in terms of the number of users, in terms of, for example, you can download the app now, and then maybe the app, let's say, what app? Let's say OPay, for example. Do you know how many people are using OPay, in Nigeria? I think they say they have over 1 million customers, right? Now, imagine that they have 1 million customers, but only 1,000 people can use it per time. Do you get? Only 1,000 people can use it. What happens to the next 900,000? That is what we call performance testing. They have to be able to test the application that it can run when 2 million people are on it. It can run when 3 million people are on it. It can run when there is Christmas and a lot of people need to do transaction. There's a lot of volume of transaction. I don't know if you people have seen it, because on a New Year Eve and you try to make call, everything is just frozen. Now that is performance testing for you. That's overload. That means that network was waiting to break. It cannot carry the number of users on it. So we have security testing to ensure that there is no vulnerability in the software. We have usability, that the software is user friendly. Sometimes also we have what we call accessibility testing, which means that is your app friendly for users that have any impairment, for maybe people that are blind or that are deaf, things like that. So you have usability, accessibility tests, right? Compatibility test means that can this software, can it work on Android? Can it work on Android 4 and Android 14? Do you understand? Can it work on iOS 18 and iOS 19? That's why they will tell you that before you download the software, you cannot run on XR. You need to have at least iPhone 15 Pro Max, before this camera feature can work for you. That's compatibility testing. Then regression testing means that, oh, now we have a new feature that if you click on this thing, it will generate your avatar. But guess what? Does that mean that we cannot upload our profile picture again? So can things that were working before, does that mean that they are not working again, or are they still working? That's what we call regression testing. So you test things that are working before, if they are still working, even though you are adding a new feature to it now. So that's regression testing. I'll go to the next setting. So in software development, there's what we call software development life cycle, right? So in testing also, we have software testing life cycle. It means that, number one, you analyze the requirements, which means, oh, this software that they say, what are the requirements? Oh, these are the requirements. People are supposed to be able to create an account and log in. Oh, you analyze it, and then you understand what is to be tested, right? That's requirement analysis. Now, test planning means that, okay, now I'm going to test if I'm able to create email, use my email, my password, what kind of password, all of those things. You plan your test. You don't just jump into testing like, okay, I'm taking the software, I'm testing it. No, you have to plan, right? You have to define your test strategy, your approach. We just finished discussing the different approach to software testing. So what are the approach that you're going to take in, performing this particular, test? And I think that answers your question, Adewi, about, the type of test that you're going to perform on its software. So then you also need to identify risks and then know how to mitigate risk. So if this happens, how are we going to solve it? So those are the things. And when the developers are done, before then, you also now have to create what we call test case. I told you to take note of test case earlier. So test case means like we have what we call user story. So it means that I have to write a test case. A case means that user should be able to put in their email address, their password, and login. That's a test case in itself. So I have to be able to test that. I have to be able to test that if I put 3-letter password, will it work? Do you understand? If I put 10, will it work? If I put only 1, 2, 3, will it work? So those are the things that we test for. Those are the things that you write test cases about. And then when the software is ready, you now start to test the software against those test cases that you've designed. As a software tester, I tell you, test case development is one of the skills that you have to develop. You have to be able to develop designing a test case. Most of your work is usually here. Now, from all these things that I've described now, which is your your STLC, right? I've not described that you'll be using any particular software. I've not described that you would learn on programming language. It's still basically analytical, So, and this is one of the reasons why software testing is a career path in tech that, as much as it's lucrative, it is easy to enter. Because, look at all these things now. I don't think there's anyone here that, after going through 4 weeks of course and 2 weeks of practice, that you will not be able to do all of these things. I don't think there's anybody here that will not be able to do that. Because, for whatever it is, everyone uses a software every day of their life. But now you are reviewing software every other day. You are thinking about, this should have been better, this should have been better. But now you now have a particular process that you have to follow to do those things. And then you're a software tester. Imagine. So there's still the test environment setup. Is this software meant for Windows, or is it meant for the browser, or is it meant for, you know, if it's going to run on browser, is it going to be running on Chrome alone, or people that are using Safari will not be able to use it, or people that are using Firefox browser are not going to use it. So I have to be able to test this thing in multiple browsers to ensure that it's something that is working in Chrome is also working in Microsoft Edge. Do you get? So that somebody will now call and say, we cannot use your app on Windows because